Found it. All right. Welcome, everyone. Today is Tuesday, June 10th, and the time is 7:05 p.m. We will call this meeting to order. Melissa, will you please take roll call?
Melissa Denton. Richard Poore. Andy Cabarrus.
Here.
Carl Hubner. Denise Meyer. And thank you. Also seated at the board table is Superintendent Bob Thompson.
Please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Board members, in your packets you have 4 sets of meeting minutes, one from our May 27th regular meeting, one from the May 27th non-public meeting number 2, and meeting number 3. So go ahead and take a look at those minutes. So I'll be looking for a motion to accept those meeting minutes, the 4 sets of meeting minutes.
So moved.
Any questions or discussion? All approved?
Thank you.
All right, Melissa, has anyone come forward for public comment?
Yes, we've had 3 Hampstead residents who have signed up for public comments.
Great. So I guess we will start with Aaron Pellegrini. And if you could please state your full name and your address for the record, and just a reminder that there is a 3-minute limit, and for public comment, you do have to be a Hampstead resident.
Erin Pellegrini, 172 Buttrick Road, Hampstead. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm here tonight to voice my concern about the recent hiring process for the assistant principal position at HMS, because the process as it unfolded raises some serious red flags that should concern all of us. From what I understand, 2 candidates were moved forward, one of whom is a veteran teacher, a dedicated community member, and someone who has long served this district with professionalism and integrity. When the first candidate declined the offer, it would be reasonable to assume that the remaining finalist, the one who also went through the same rigorous review process, would be offered the role. But that didn't happen, and the decision to not move forward with her still hasn't been clearly explained. As a former board member, I do recognize that some matters cannot be shared publicly. It appears to me that she was moved forward in good faith, but only under the assumption that the other candidate would accept, and when that plan backfired, the process collapsed. If that's true, it's not just unfortunate, it's deeply flawed and unfair. If someone is advanced to the final round, especially in a public process involving students, peers, and community stakeholders, they should be someone you are prepared to hire. If not, they should never be put in that position, period. And while she was ultimately offered the interim position, a 1-year trial, the damage was already done. The process played out publicly, and the message had already been sent. Despite being a finalist and receiving strong feedback from stakeholders, she was not the first choice or even the second. That decision has shaken trust. Not only does it send the wrong message to staff who have dedicated their careers to this district, but it also discourages future leaders from rising internally. That kind of outcome, after such a public and community-involved process, it's discouraging and disheartening. It should never have unfolded that way. When a hiring decision is public and involves someone deeply embedded in the community, the impact is multiplied. The humiliation is real, and the ripple effects go far beyond the individual. I urge this board to reflect on how we got here and how we fix it. These decisions carry weight, and they require oversight. Please ensure you're reviewing end-of-year staff surveys because they may reveal the damage this process has caused and help to guide steps needed to repair it. On a personal note, as a former board member, volunteer, and parent, I want to express how deeply troubling this situation has been to witness. During a particularly challenging year when my child faced not only peer bullying, but also experienced mistreatment by the current assistant principal, it was Mrs. Mayu who made a difference. Her compassion, support, and steady leadership were instrumental in helping him navigate and ultimately salvage his 8th grade year. For that, I remain profoundly grateful. And to Mrs. Mayu, I hope that you know that your efforts have not gone unnoticed or unappreciated. Whatever this outcome may signal, please don't let it diminish the positive and lasting impact you've had on our family and so many others.
Next, we have Michaela Eichen. If you could please state your full name and your address.
Of course. My name is Michaela Eichen. I reside at 42 Golden Meadow Road. My name is Michaela Eichen, and I am grateful to have the opportunity to speak this evening. I come before you on behalf of Mrs. Mayu, a well-respected educator who recently applied for the assistant principal position at the Hampstead Middle School. Heather Mayu is a highly qualified individual holding a master's degree, New Hampshire teacher certification, and decades of experience in upper elementary and middle school curriculum, instruction, and assessment. She was a university supervisor for Plymouth State University. She completed her principal certification practicum at Hampstead Middle School under Principal Maria. She holds all the necessary certifications and advanced degrees required for administrative leadership. Despite this, she was not selected for the role, and this is why I'm here tonight, along with an entire community and a room full of 40 people, to support Mrs. Mayu, but also to shed light on the inequitable hiring process. There are many concerns that have raised a red flag. Concern 1, the lack of transparency. Concern 2, communication. Concern 3, the lack of organization and system for interviewing candidates. Concern 4, playing favoritism crosses a line into discrimination. This gross situation goes beyond one candidate. It raises an issue about fairness, accountability, and integrity in our school district hiring processes. When qualified leaders come across our path and we pass them over without a clear rationale, we risk trust among the staff and community. Our school district should reflect the values of equity, excellence, and transparency. I respectfully urge the board to investigate this matter and ensure that all hiring decisions, specifically for leadership roles, are solely based on merit through a fair, organized, and non-biased process. Students, staff, and our community deserve strong leaders like Mrs. Mayu. Our candidates deserve a fair shot. Change starts here with you tonight. Do what is right for our community. Thank you.
And then we have Jason and Leslie Cucolo. Hopefully I pronounced your last names correctly.
Hi, we are Leslie and Jason Cucolo, 17 Freedom Hill Road. My husband and I were both on the parent panel for the interviews, and we had the opportunity, which we greatly were appreciative, to be a part of this process. One thing that I would like to just speak upon is the most recent communication, the email that went out describing how the process had not worked out. One concern for me was that the wording regarding the first candidate, Christina Kaskowitz, was that she had withdrawn from the process. I think it's really important that the residents know that she was offered the position. My concern is that it makes it look as though she doesn't respect the process and that she wasn't fully invested in the process, which she most definitely was. It just turned out that another opportunity came about and she accepted that. I think also in regards to Heather Mayu, it was a little alarming to us that at the very last minute when that notification came out, the job description was different than what we understood it to be, especially as parents sitting on that panel. So we are a little curious about how that came to be. Did you want to say something? I don't know.
Yeah, that was just, my biggest concern was, we thought we did the process with everyone else, and when we put forward 2 candidates, and it sounds like that was agreement for all the other committees, the job description then changed for 1, and I think as a community, we deserve some kind of explanation on that.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Mr. Cipriano, if you'd like to come up and speak, please state your full name and your address.
Good evening. Jason Andrew Cipriano. I live at 115 Laura Lane in Hampstead. Members of the board, I contacted you via email, and I'm not going to repeat everything that I put in the email, but I will highlight for the members of the community just a few of the concerns that I expressed regarding the assistant principal search and offer process. One, and I'll acknowledge that the board and I have differing opinions on this, I don't believe that even under ED 302, the superintendent has the authority to change a position once the board has voted on that position. And in this case, the board voted to create a regular full-time assistant principal. So I don't believe the superintendent has the authority to then change it to an interim and suggest that you may consult with legal counsel. Maybe you already have, but I don't believe that authority exists. Second, regarding the process, and we've already heard about the transparency, one of the concerns that I raised was, without explanation, the community was told, for those of us not in the process, the community was told that we had 2 extremely qualified, I'm quoting, extremely qualified is what we were told, candidates for the assistant principal. So then to find out that one wasn't offered the position or was offered it as an interim position is very confusing without any real explanation as to how we went from an extremely qualified candidate, how an extremely qualified candidate isn't capable or isn't deserving of the regular position, is only deserving of an interim position without any guarantee that it would convert to a full-time position or anything like that. So I hope that the board clarifies that for members of the community. Obviously, you've already heard about the issues of transparency in the process. And I too also want to reiterate comments that have been made. I am concerned about the message it sends to our highly qualified educators, that their best chance of finding promotion opportunities and serving in school administration is to leave our district. And that's really not the message that we want to send to these dedicated educators. I think we benefit when our educators, highly qualified ones, stay within our district, rise up and find opportunities. They don't come along very often. So I would encourage the board to think about the message that it sends to our staff and the message that it sends to the community. I understand the challenges that you faced. I've served on the board myself. I know it's not easy. And I respect that, that you're trying to do the best that you can. Thank you.
At this point, are there any other Hampstead residents that would like to come forward for public comment? Yes. Please state your name and your address.
Hi, my name is Karen Yasenka. I live at 79 Buttrick Road. I'm here tonight to talk about your current business under H, Superintendent Evaluation Wrap-Up. I'd like to ask the board, first I'd like to say that I've always been an advocate of public education. I've served on the board and have always supported the staff and students within our district. What I'm asking you to do tonight in your wrap-up is to consider the justifications for whatever number you are arriving at if it's different or the same as what we voted on in March for the superintendent. When I was on the board, all the principals, administrators, when they came for the budget review, they had to include what their justification was for the number that they put in place. So I would seriously like for some transparency to see how you justify whatever that number comes to be, keeping in mind that we are 2 schools, about 800 students. There have been issues. There's a line item now for consultants, which we never needed before in the past. A lot of the consultant work was done, led by the superintendent, along with his H team and sometimes members of the staff in different areas. So there's a line item there. There have also been a number of reports of bullying and instances within the school, which is concerning to me, that they're not being taken care of on in a more effective way. Anyway, I guess that's what I'm asking for, some transparency and justification for the amount of total compensation that you are offering the superintendent this year. Thank you.
All right. Any other Hampstead residents? Anyone would like to come forward? Okay. All right, moving on to letter A, the assistant principal search update with Bob Thompson.
Thank you. First, I want to thank everyone for coming out this evening and engaging in the civic process. So I really was just going to give an update on where we are with the current process, and I think I'll do that first, and then I do want to be able to try to address some of the questions that were raised. So, since my last communication, which was referenced, we've opened the search back up. We've had 5 candidates who have applied for the position. In review of those applications, we selected 3 for interviews. One of them withdrew at the last moment. We held a interview yesterday. It was a stakeholder group of building administrator, district administrators, parent, school board member, and staff members as well. So we're in the process of continuing, applications continue to come in. We're going to continue to accept those. Right now the goal is to fill it with a permanent position. We do have an interim posted. To be honest with you, I haven't even looked at that application pool because I'm pretty confident, given some of the people that have applied, that we will have a permanent replacement for the position. The goal is still July 1. Obviously, each day that goes by, we may have to push that out a little bit. But I'm optimistic because I think about a year ago, we began to engage in the process of hiring a new principal and a new director of student services. And that process began at the very end of the school year, and we were able to get people in place in August. And when I say people, we were able to get 2 really phenomenal candidates to accept those positions. And so I am confident that the assistant principal position will be filled, if not for July 1, shortly thereafter. I do just want to address a couple of the things that were said, because I do think in matters like this, there's obviously information that we can share publicly and some that we can't. And so I understand that when we can't fill in information, a narrative gets written. So let me see if I can correct just a couple of things. So first of all, I just want to say both finalists were offered the position and neither accepted. And I want to say that again, just to be very clear, because there seems to be some confusion about that. Both candidates were offered the position and neither accepted. And I want to be clear, and I'm going to speak generally about an interim position. So an interim position is a 1-year contract. When we have brand new administrators, there's 2 types of contracts. There is a 1-year contract, and that's it. Or there's an interim contract where there's a safety net built in. And that safety net preserves the employee's position should at the end of the year, the district either decide or the employee decide that they do not want to continue in that role. That's an important safety net to have. Anyone who is entering into an administrative position and receiving a one-year contract realizes there is always a gamble in that. And so I want to be clear because, you know, I've had people who've reached out to me who have described the interim position as some sort of concession prize. You know, it's a type of contract that preserves the employee's position at the end of the term of that contract should they decide not to continue. It's a nice safety net. I'd also like to talk a little bit about the finalist selection. So, and this is true of all of our positions here in Hampstead, not just the assistant principal position. The building principal is responsible for screening the pool of applicants. I generally, with most positions, don't even look at the pool of applicants when they come in. And their job is to take that pool of applicants, in this case it was 32, and be able to whittle that down to 2 finalists. That process is 100% completely independent of the superintendent of schools. At no point in that process do I say, this is the one finalist, this is another finalist, select this person, don't select this person. And I really believe that Principal Bernard, in good faith, put forward the 2 best people in that pool. And she did so by reviewing different data points. The selection of the 2 finalists for the assistant principal position, or any position for that matter, when it comes to me, gets an independent evaluation. It is not a rubber stamp. And I can tell you in less high-profile situations, there have been times where building principals have sent me 2 finalists, and I have not agreed with either one. Because my job, as dictated by the board, is to bring forward nominations in good faith based upon a variety of factors. In this case, and in most cases, that factor is an extensive superintendent interview with the leadership team. So if finalists don't get sent to the superintendent for me to have to pick one of them, I am paid to make unpopular decisions that I believe are in the best interest of the district. I believe that's exactly what I did. And so I have to say that, you know, one of the speakers talked about assumptions, and I do think that there are a lot of assumptions being made. When the selection was made for the 2 finalists, they were evaluated on their on their merits. And anyone who knows me, who has had any conversation with me, knows that I treat people with dignity and respect. There is never any motive other than that. And if you feel as though that's not the case, and there's some sort of trust issue that leads you to believe that there's some sort of other motivation, come talk to me. I appreciate there's been a handful of people who have actually had the conversation with me. Because I think anyone who knows me and knows me well enough knows that I always start from a place of dignity and respect when I engage with staff members, I have conversations with people, or I make decisions. So with that said, I'm confident that we will have a replacement for the assistant principal position. The goal is still July 1. If we have to extend that, we certainly can. If we have to look at an interim position, we can.
From the board's perspective, I just want to dispel any rumors or assumptions around the process. So as Bob stated, to kind of reiterate that process, it has always been that the superintendent brings candidates forward, a candidate forward to the board, which would allow us to interview that candidate before making a motion for a nomination. At this point, Bob decided not to bring forward a candidate. An interim position was offered. That position was not taken, and a candidate was not ever presented to the board. So I just want to make that clear in terms of the process. Anything else?
Sir, are we allowed to say anything else about that, or are we not allowed to comment on that?
Yeah. Public comments are closed, unfortunately. If what?
public comments start, they have to be open for 30 minutes, but we would have to reopen public comment.
So do we want to reopen?
I'd like to just say on behalf of the staff, I think there's some misunderstanding as far as litigation, and we would like to have further conversations as far as what we shared this evening, and offer to the board that you have an opportunity to meet with community members and staff, and we would like to welcome them, and so that we can work together. That's one person. Thank you.
I'd like to go to do it. For the community, for the school, for the kids, for the community, for the progression of the school. You should have put someone that was highly qualified forward. You're moving backwards. And I'm sorry to say it, I love the school, I love the community, but you blew it. Sorry.
You have to hold public comment open for 30 minutes after it's opened, in case other people come up or want to comment.
Saying, does anyone else want to go forward? Okay, so let's reopen it. Let's reopen it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to reopen public comment.
I will second that. Do we need to say all approved? Any discussion around reopening public comment?
Public comment is limited to a total of 30 minutes, though, so we can do more public comment, but at a certain point, it will have to get closed.
Yep. All those in favor of reopening public comment? Okay. You said you would like to come forward.
When the term, like,
You
blowing
have to
it.
restate your name
So,
and your
sorry,
address.
Michaela
I
Eichen.
apologize.
Nope, that's
yeah.
okay. Michaela Eichen, 42 Golden Meadow Road.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for allowing more public comment. I just have to say that if we had an extremely highly qualified candidate that was already there to just be in that place, and that was removed, and I understand like what Mr. Thompson just said, but as a community member and having a child in the school district, there have just been multiple things that have happened on behalf, not teachers, but administrative roles that have just really put a distrust in me, and that is why I'm here tonight, to really just voice my concern. We're all human beings, right? And there is a thing called, I know, favoritism, and things are supposed to be done just by looking at merit and things like in a timeline when you're looking at somebody's application process. But let's be real here. If we all looked at those things and we had two extremely highly qualified candidates and two moved forward and now that person's not there, let's do the math. And I just encourage you to do whatever you can from your standpoint to go and investigate and do what you need to do to just figure out what happened along the way. But there's one very highly qualified candidate that would fit perfect in the piece of the puzzle that's missing here, and it's just going to take you to figure it out where that missing piece is. So, now I won't talk anymore.
If you'd please state your name and your address.
Yeah. Kate Muscat, 68 Catherine Ave, East Hampstead, New Hampshire. I guess I support all of the staff. Obviously, we have everybody here, or a lot of people here that support our process. We want to support you in the process as well. However, I think our biggest concern is that we thought we had 32 candidates going forward, and then we brought 5, and then we narrowed it down, and then we were told as a staff that we had 2 highly qualified candidates, and in our opinion, we thought we were going to get 1 assistant principal. It was never brought to our attention that there was going to even be an interim. And I guess my thing is more of a question. If we had a different candidate, if we didn't have a staff member here, would have there been an interim? Like, is that something that we would offer somebody else? It's very confusing to us as a staff that that's the defense for why a person wasn't promoted. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to come forward for additional public comment?
Hi, it's tall for me. Caitlin Glant, 47 Johnson Meadow Road. So I just have a clarifying question, and that question is, and I think it's causing some confusion, and it did for us in the back, was Mrs. Mayu only offered the interim position? What I'm trying to say, like, what I heard you say is that she was offered the interim position because she's a staff member, so that if it didn't work out, she could step back down. It preserves her classroom position? Because that's what I thought, like, that's what I understood from back there, and I don't know if anyone else understood it that way. And I think that's what's very unclear to us, if that's the why behind it, you know? Because we, like, again, we were all unaware that interim was an option. We thought it was going forward two qualified people to be the middle school assistant principal. So, and I have to add in, I just didn't want to speak earlier, Heather Mayu has done wonderful thing for both of my children when they couldn't quite find their niche, and she found that, and she brought out this like beautiful, positive, amazing, you know, child within them, and I thought, what a great candidate to do that for all of our students, whereas maybe they've struggled in the past with someone else. So just that question is where I want clarification. Was that where the interim idea came from? Thank you.
Would you like me to address that? Okay. Yeah, so,
Sure. No worries.
I am Sheila Chason. I am at Bartlett Road in Hampstead. My question would be, were both candidates offered interim or just one of them? And was the interim one posted publicly for public posting? And do the rules change after the first candidate pulled out? Sounds to me like it might be a Department of Labor issue for an unfair labor practice, possibly. And I hope it works out. Thank you.
would you like me to respond to the?
Sure.
Sure. Just to answer the question about interim. So during my comments, just speaking generally about an interim, it wasn't speaking specifically about this particular process. But again, generally speaking, when you have somebody who doesn't have administrative experience, they're typically offered a one-year contract or an interim contract that doesn't specifically have to do with their status, with their current status of employment, whether in Hampstead or in another school district. So again, like, we are entertaining the idea of hiring an interim if the process for a permanent replacement does not yield anything. If an individual had zero administrative experience, they would likely be given a one-year contract. If they had multiple years of leadership experience, they might receive a two-year contract. Each situation is different. And in terms of the interim position, again, professional positions are approved by the board. That would include an interim position. So for me to offer an interim position still requires me nominating, making a recommendation to the board so that the board could approve that. So.
Jason Cipriano, again, you know my address. I would encourage the board to just think and maybe clarify a couple of things as a former school board member, just regarding contracts. And I fully respect, I haven't been on the board in a few years, so maybe things have changed. I can say a couple of things. One, during my time on the board, including time as chairman, we offered employment contracts to administrators who had never been administrators before. We never offered interim roles. They were always full-time, and they were hired as such, and that's fine. Maybe things have changed since I left the board. Again, it's a question for this board to answer. Number one. Number two, having been the chair and having signed these contracts, maybe the contracts have also changed. There was never language in contracts that said, hey, if this doesn't work out, you're guaranteed, you got your old position back. So if that was there, or if that's, maybe the contract language has changed, again, I just encourage the board to kind of take a look at this, because this is all news to me. It was never in any of our old contracts. Maybe the administrator contracts are different now. And in terms of the practice of interim, if they don't have administrator experience, that also is never the practice of this district. But again, it's a different administration, it's a different school board, so maybe things are different now.
Sure.
Leslie Kuklo, Freedom Hill Road. I'm an educator. I've been in education for 20 years. My husband as well. It is very clear that the staff was in support of Mrs. Mayu. As a teacher, I know that the happiness of a staff and the culture of a building trickles down from the administration. And if there was a candidate and it was well known that the staff was so passionately in support of her, I would hope that that would be taken into consideration and taken seriously. Again, when a staff is happy and they feel supported and the climate of the school is healthy, that is going to trickle down into the happiness of our children, into the culture of the school, into the way the staff participates in extracurricular events. It's just incredibly important that as we move forward, we find the staff and Mrs. Bernard and the children an administrator that is going to work towards that healthy climate and that positive culture. So I'm hoping going forward, that is something that we can really put at the top of our list, knowing how much of an impact that can have on everyone, including staff and children and community.
Absolutely. Make sure it's on.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Just speaking as a board member, I guess I just want the public to know that we were able to review stakeholder comments. Also, I think as a board member, something important for me is we had a study done on MTSS to identify what our buildings need, and I think that's something I'm looking forward to in a candidate. And I think we need a very strong leader to come into our building that knows systems and can put things in place. And I guess that's what I'm looking for in one of our leaders. And as far as interim or a one-year position, I think, just because something wasn't done before and someone's offered interim versus a one-year contract, it doesn't make it wrong. It's just something different.
Is it okay if I say something?
Yes, can you
Melissa
state-
Karpinski, Proctor Drive. First, I want to say the reason we're all here is because the stakes are really high. We have all put a lot of everything. Carla, I'm the school counselor in the building. I'd love to come over and give you a hug because I could probably use one too. But the stakes are high. I have to say I've worked here for 9 years, and the woman behind me, she's small but mighty, and we're all here for her. The culture has shifted. The culture has shifted, and this incredibly In a year, she has shifted the culture, actually, in the first 30 days in this building. The amount of things that she did and changed. I mean, our very first day in the auditorium, just the We Are Hampstead with the kids, you could just feel it. The kids could feel it. And she needs some support, and we all need some support. And I feel like, to your point, Melissa, I think that's Heather Mayu's biggest strength, her systems, her protocols, her Rubik's Cube brain is what I call it. I feel like she's been able to support our MTSS process this year in a way that could propel our district in such a way where we reduce IEPs, we reduce 504s, because we're able to provide interventions in the regular ed environment that help support kids in a way where we don't need to put everybody on an IEP or a 504, and she's just really good with that. And I'm not going to speak to all the pieces with the process, but because I have a lot of questions and you've addressed some of that, I still feel like for somebody that's worked here and that's put so much everything into this community, and the stakes are high for her to put herself out there says a lot. And I think that it should just, I don't know if it can be reconsidered, and I just, to improve the climate, to support leadership, to keep really excellent educators in this building, to consider all the things that the people behind me have gone through over the past few years with the change in leadership. We've had 3 heads of student services. We've had, in the time that the 8th graders have been here, we've had 3 principals, and now we're on our 2nd principal, or assistant principal. I think that we really need to be smart in how we do this, and I think that the people have spoken, and I just don't know why it didn't translate to that in the end. So thank you for hearing us. Carl, thank you for opening these comments back up. All of you, I appreciate it.
Thank you for all coming out. I appreciate it.
Your mic's
It just came up. Thank you all for coming out. I appreciate it. We did not get to make a decision. You are all valued. Amy, we all agree is doing a wonderful job, and we really approve of her. And Bob absolutely approves of what Amy is doing and is one of her biggest cheerleaders. I think that's really important to understand too. So, yeah.
Not had a successful previous administration, so you did walk in with very big shoes to fill and a big job, and you have done a lot this year, so we do appreciate it.
Yep. I will echo that, particularly because I challenged you on your first day of coming in here and making change, and you have done that.
Yeah, we have her hit at least a 30-minute limit for public comment, so I think we should move on.
All right. Thank you all for sharing your opinions and thoughts on this process. I do genuinely appreciate it. All right, moving on to strategic plan deliverables.
All right, good evening. So this is, I think, my favorite presentation of the year. So Hampstead School District, this is year 3 of our 3-year strategic plan. So we are now sunsetting our strategic plan. We will engage in a year of self-study next year, where we'll develop a new guiding document, strategic plan, portrait of graduate. We're still working on a sort of format, and then that process will begin in August. We'll have a steering committee, and at the end of that process, we'll have a new guiding document. So this is sort of bittersweet for me because this has really been the core of our work over the last 3 years. So you'll recall at the beginning of the year, we dove into the strategic plan and developed deliverables. And the concept of deliverables was very deliberate on the part of the board and the administration, because most districts develop strategic plans and then they sit on a shelf, they gather dust, they become irrelevant. And it was our intention from the beginning to develop a process and a document that was alive, that was dynamic, so that every year it could address the challenges of a new school year. We were also very deliberate in developing a 3-year plan as opposed to a 5-year plan, knowing that things change so quickly in our schools that knowing where we'll be in 5 years is maybe a little bit of a stretch. So. So this year, our deliverables they're accountability measures, and essentially we commit to the work in August, align to the strategic plan. We did a check-in with the board in January. We were in a great place in January. We had been able to satisfy over 50% of the deliverables, and I'm happy to say today that we come here. I'm not going to tell you that we've done it all, because there are some actions that we will say in August we're going to do, and then things change and our priorities change, or sometimes, just to be perfectly honest, we don't get around to it. And so you will hear tonight things like completed, in progress, or a future goal. That if something didn't get done this year, it's not that we're going to set it aside. It's that we're going to, that will be something that we'd look to do for next year. And so before I turn it over to members of our team, I just want to say how impressed I am with all the work that's been done. The strategic plan is front-facing with every decision we make, every action we take. And I think it's important. They get to come up here and talk about all of the achievements and all of the great work that's been done this year. And I want to lead off by talking about some of the challenges. Because despite some real significant challenges this year, this team was able to persevere, move forward. And again, the board has heard me say it, our goal is always continuous growth. We want to continue to grow, even if that growth is incremental or small. We always want to make sure that we're growing. And I can tell you, we are in a much better place today than we were in August. Despite the challenges, and I just want to list a couple of them. Number one is staffing, and I know this board is acutely aware of some of the staffing adjustments. Not only was it coming into the year with some vacant positions that were difficult to fill, but also some emerging staffing needs that developed throughout the school year. So we had to make some tough choices. We had to shift some personnel around. So it's awfully difficult to execute on all of our deliverables when we're not fully staffed. Funding was a major issue and is going to continue to be a major issue moving forward. We have unanticipated costs. It's transportation, it's special education, it's other areas. When we begin our budgeting process, it's done a year in advance. It is a forecast. And so we've had some challenges this year. And quite frankly, we will have more challenges next year. The operating budget that the administration first brought to this board versus what was approved ultimately by the voters is almost $1 million less than what we've recommended. So the challenge of funding will continue to be there. This year, we've also found it incredibly difficult to navigate executive orders from the White House, to navigate legislation in Concord. That has presented a pretty significant challenge, and will continue to do so in the future. And so despite those challenges, our leadership team and our staff, they persevere, they move forward, and I am happy to say that we've made some really impressive growth this year. And so at this point, we will move on with Mrs. Tomaselli, who's going to talk about our priorities. Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. McDonald is going to talk about our values.
Hi, good evening. I've had the opportunity to speak to our values throughout the year, and I don't want to take away from what our other leadership is going to be speaking to, but just as a reminder, we are communicating with positive intent, focusing on understanding and supporting our district within the schools and in the community. We're honoring the child. We are individually meeting needs. We're looking at students' full potential and looking at their personalized learning, inclusive practices, and empowering their voice, as well as respecting relationships along the way. We in Hampstead are continuing to build relationships and team building, fostering our connections to create a cohesive and supportive educational environment for all to learn and grow. We are acting with integrity. We're upholding ethical principles, transparency, and accountability in our actions and decisions, and promoting a culture of collaboration as we are considering staff, students, families, and our community, and working together for a common goal for our education.
Thank you. These are our 5 strategic priorities for the past several years. Our first priority is rooted in universal design for learning. When we first embarked on the strategic plan, UDL committees were in existence at each school, and we had several pockets of really outstanding success with UDL, but I'm very proud that this has become a priority and is now part of our evaluation model, and we have more and more evidence of this happening that you'll see in this presentation tonight throughout the district. So empowering students to become expert learners who have confidence to advocate for themselves and take responsibility for their learning. And that looks, vastly different pre-K through 8, but you'll see more of that tonight. The second priority is to examine our programs and practices for relevance and effectiveness. We've just completed a variety of curriculum reviews in the past few years. You'll hear more about that tonight. We are constantly learning and attending workshops and conferences, bringing best practice back in, and increasingly looking for evidence-based approaches and tools and resources. Our third priority is to foster a positive school culture that honors the emotional well-being of students and staff. We have a variety of ways we approach this and a variety of different events. And fourth priority is to improve communication for staff and community stakeholders. And our fifth priority is to design learning environments that match our education philosophies. This one is quite possibly the most exciting and dynamic, and there's a lot you'll see in this presentation about that.
So at the Hampstead Central School, in the area of Priority 1, empowering students to become those expert learners who have the confidence to advocate for themselves and take responsibility for their learning, our UDL team has continued to be a force in our building and working to make sure that we are breaking down barriers for students and providing access to curriculum. And one of the ways that we are doing that is by breaking down some of those walls and deprivatizing some of our practices through some various ways. We utilize a lesson design studio and a learning walk model this year to really help develop lessons that will support student independence, both in their learning and in their behavior. So this year, every one of our teachers participated in at least one learning walk. Our teachers who are part of our mentor program participated in more than that, as well as our UDL team did a lesson design studio where they collaboratively plan a lesson, they watch it play out, and then they collaborate on next steps. And then finally, we did some instructional rounds, which is another opportunity where you have an area of focus to find evidence in. And we were pleased to be able to host instructional rounds for both the H team and area superintendents this year. And so that goal has been completed, but we look forward to more opportunities to do that next year. Our next action strategy was to incorporate common vocabulary through our Second Step program. And that is still in progress. The first step to that began this year, where we shifted the teaching of our second step, which is our social emotional learning curriculum, from our school counselor to our classroom teachers. And that shift in practice was significant, and it has taken us some time to get that up and running and to build those routines and strategies, and for our classroom teachers to learn some of those pieces. So what we have done is for the 25-26 school year is we've modified our master schedule to include a weekly building-wide time for school-wide morning meeting, so that way the entire school will be engaged in second step lessons, common language, and that morning meeting opportunity for check-in on Monday mornings when we see our students transitioning back to school with some of their bigger feelings and needing some additional support. And finally, in the area of priority number 1, we had hoped to increase student goal setting through our WIN, our What I Need model, which is part of our MTSS system. And this is still in progress as well. Our teachers have created really strong goals for their WIN groups, and students have created individual personal goals in their classrooms, not necessarily tied to their academic instruction. Some students were really hoping to improve their baseball skills this year, while others were really excited about knowing their multiplication facts more quickly. So students in grade 4 especially have developed independent goals, and they've tracked them independently. Through the WIN group, staff have shared a daily goal as well as a longer-term goal, and students have been working hard to increase their achievement in literacy and math. This time of the year especially, students are celebrating the progress that they've made toward those reading and math goals through our assessment processes. And I have a couple of pictures. Okay, so up here on the top left, you can see our 4th graders who just had an opportunity to visit the Parker River Wildlife Refuge, which was a program that one of our 4th grade teachers made a connection with the refuge and was able to bring the learning around pollinators to our entire 4th grade. On the top right, we have an example of one of those goals that students have set. This one I really appreciate. It's to get better at division, and I also want to learn about protractors. Me too. On the bottom left, we have our 4th grade run. Some of our 4th graders engage in the mile, and a lot of them really want to improve their time and their fitness throughout the year. And this is work that Mrs. Arroyo and Mrs. Ingraham really focus on throughout the year. In the middle, we have a 4th grade student reading with a 1st grade buddy. Making those connections across classrooms is so important and so valued. And finally, on the bottom right, we have one of our teachers doing a read aloud with her 2nd grade class and engaging them in voices and characters and fluency and really having them hear what strong reading looks like. And now, Mrs. Bernard.
I'm going to have to adjust this down. So at HMS, in Priority 1, empowering students to become expert learners who have the confidence to advocate for themselves and take responsibility for their learning, I have to say, on a personal note, just observing our students this year, particularly with the 8th graders, and watching them turn into such leaders, mature, advocating for themselves, I really feel like our school does it and does it well. So our action strategies here, the first one that we had was to expand math enrichment by offering diverse activities that cater to different learning styles and provide students with choice and challenge. So in our 8th grade math classes, we removed the accelerated class and offered those opportunities to all students. So really expanding on differentiated instruction in the classroom. Our 8th grade math teacher offered enrichment opportunities twice a week, as well as challenges on assignments during the week. And she used this data to help decide for course selection for their high school math courses. I just debriefed on her this week with her about this, and she said she really liked this approach. She's working with our 7th grade math teacher as well, and they're doing the same thing. And they're finding that the students in the class, even the ones that struggle a little bit more, are rising because of the other students around them. So a really successful change that we made this year. Second action strategy is to enhance our comprehensive counseling program to address the diverse needs of students. Our counselors are two of the hardest working individuals in the school. They are absolutely outstanding. They already were working hard, and they have added so many different opportunities for students within their program. They have new groups such as lunch groups at all grade levels. They have leadership groups where they take some upperclassmen, take underclassmen under their wing. They have an ice cream sandwich club. I want to be a part of that. I haven't been asked yet, unfortunately. They have many different SEL groups. Also, now with our addition of our Tier 2 support room, our WIN room, this gives our school counseling opportunity to pull out students for counseling sessions. Our school psychologist can work with students. Sometimes our behavior specialist goes in there, and our social worker. So it gives us an opportunity to provide some of that connection while a student may be receiving some intervention, behavioral or academic. They also have many monthly themes. As we know, our May month was mental health awareness, which was sort of the highlight of that was our Wellness Week, which was absolutely outstanding. So many activities for our students. Our 8th graders brought lessons to our 5th grade students on mental health. We had our guest speaker, Ed Garrity. We had a whole wellness day with workshops for students to choose. It really was like a beautiful celebration of wellness at our school. You can see our tree over there, which is the students filled out at lunch with something that they're grateful for. So it was really a great week all around. And then our third action strategy is to continue to incorporate writing skills across the curriculum. I would say the first two were completed. This next one, I would just say that we want to continue to work on this. I think that writing is really important. It's really important that it is in all curriculum areas. So this is just something that I think we're going to continue to focus on. Some of the examples of the things that we did this year, I have to lead off with our Winter Words and Writing workshop in mega event, because that was a string over several months where all students were able to take advantage of different writing challenges and earn points for celebration parties. And then it culminated in this massive event that we collaborated with the Central School, had our bingo for books, had our book fair, and then different stations all around the school. We were able to bring the community in. We had student leaders working different tables, like sharing their challenges with the public. It was just an absolutely outstanding night and all about writing. So it was so great that we left it up for the next day so that students that weren't able to experience it could be a part of it and enjoy it the next day. Another couple examples I wanted to share. In 8th grade, our ELA class works on the building blocks of the 5-paragraph essay all year, which then translates to our social studies class, which takes and they write the 5-paragraph essay following an MLA format and preparing them for Pinkerton. I think it's worth noting in all of our art classes, at the end of each quarter, students pick a piece of art and they do an artist statement. Miss Downey is a former writing teacher. I think that's important to note here. Absolutely outstanding at her craft. They must use appropriate vocabulary from the unit of study. 5th graders start with a word bank, and as they move towards 8th grade, they must do this independently, and it's really awesome to read their finished products. In our science department, they always focus on what is called CER, claim evidence reasoning, which they do in all of their reading of their assignments. So we are working on writing, but I think we could continue to do so. You can go ahead and click. And I have some pictures here. The top left is just from one of those stations in our writing mega event. Those students were working that station. I can't read that one there, but there was several of them. You can see on the bottom right too, there was a poetry board where you could go up and you could write a little poetry and add it to the story there. So there was different stations all around the school. On the bottom left, of course, Play for the Cure, which is a hallmark event here at the middle school. In the middle at the bottom, that was some of our 8th graders bringing a lesson to the 5th graders on mental health and wellness. And up in the top right, that's one of our 8th grade students who is teaching part of a lesson to his peers. So pretty cool there. Go ahead. So then at the middle school, in the area of Priority 2, examining current programs and practices for their relevance and effectiveness. Of course, this is the big one, right? Looking at our MTSS be a multi-tiered system of support for behavior. And really, so this year, this was a huge charge for me, was to look at what we were doing at the middle school, pick it apart, and try to find areas of focus and improvement. And so I think that this is still a work in progress. I think we have made major improvements, and I think we still have a ways to go. But I am proud to say, I think specifically, I just want to add this little, this reference point here. In September, the month of September, we had 78 conduct referrals to the office. The month of May, we had 25. So that's an 80% reduction. So our goal there was to reduce behavior by 10%. And I just want to share that because I think that's outstanding, and I think that speaks to what the teachers are doing in the classroom. So with that, let me find my thing here. We are working on we rolled out our online referral system. So we did some training. Myself and Joe trained our staff in the middle of March to submit online referrals. This now has really given us so much data that we can now dive into and kind of understand what is going on with our students and how we can support them better. So it's really, now we're kind of at the beginning stages of being able to collect that data and really see where we can target certain behaviors. We use that data in our grade level MTSS meetings along with our school-wide MTSS meetings. We really want to focus on, I really want our school to focus on tier 1 classroom management strategies, right? We want there to be the classroom culture that supports learning, and we don't want our students to leave the classroom, right? We don't want them to be referred to the office. We want the relationship to be strong with our teachers, and so I think this is really a focus that we need to really look at as we move forward. But I will say that we did have some of our staff members, including Kelly Martinez, Caitlin Singlaze, and Laura Johnson, step up and help other classroom teachers by observing our 5th grade classes and looking at some areas where they could help out students. And in that observation, they looked at self-regulation. And they then went to the advisories of those 5th grade classrooms, and they did a lesson on self-regulation with the students. And so that kind of helped them understand how they were feeling in the moment and some strategies they could use, maybe to calm down or to get some energy out or whatever. So that was just one small thing that we worked on in terms of a tier 1 support, but we're going to continue that moving forward. And then, as I said, we're just diving into that discipline data and really seeing what areas we can target and improve on. So I am, though, really proud to say that I think that we're moving in the right direction there. Next, we are, I think this is Nicole Thomaselli.
Thank you. I know, she's very excited. Okay, so 2 other things for Priority 2, and then I'll speak to Central School as well. We, and this pertains to both schools, so line is on both sides, redesigned the mentor program this year. It is not perfect. I'm going to be collecting feedback from our mentees and our mentors to make enhancements, but basically We redesigned the mentor program to include paraprofessionals this year. Paraprofessionals are an incredibly important part of both school communities, not only as special ed paras for one-on-one students or two-on-one, but also in an instructional capacity. For us to be able to fully implement MTSS-A and MTSS-B, we need to be able to get children into small groups. And one of the ways we do that is by training our paraprofessionals as best we possibly can with instructional practices and behavioral modifications. So incorporating paras into our mentor program is essential. We've also redesigned the program so that we have building mentor teams. We've selected 4 individuals at each school who exemplify the different areas within our evaluation model. And so our mentees can access those 4 people at any point throughout the year. Those 4 people also contributed to monthly meetings because of their specialized skills and brought those topics directly to mentees. All new hires for the first time ever were mandated to participate in instructional rounds and see our master teachers doing what we do well. So I thought that was a really big milestone, and we look forward to expanding that next year. And then the last step, and this is still in development, is we need to develop the skill set of our mentors and our mentor coordinator. I'm researching different programs and ways we can do this, and there are some really successful models for mentors as a PLC group. So we'll be participating in that, if not this summer, throughout the year, next year and next summer. The third line here is a thorough implementation of 2 new math program pilots. So you're well aware of our math curriculum pilot projects. We have selected Ready Math at the middle school. This curriculum will be implemented in grades 5 through 8 and algebra. We're very excited about Ready Math at the middle school. This also at Central School, we have piloted some different products, and we landed with Eureka Squared. We had our first professional learning session on Eureka Squared called a launch on May 23rd. I'm very pleased with the way the training unfolded. Our teachers are feeling very confident. I want to thank all of the people who were in the pilot at the Central School in particular, because they were grade level leaders. They brought their kits, they brought their materials. More importantly, they brought their experience in transitioning toward this program and helped their colleagues embrace it. There's definitely going to be a shift. We're going to be needing to educate parents. This will look very different than other math programs you've seen come home, but the rankings and all of the reviews from many other high-performing districts come with full support of implementation of Eureka Squared. So we're very excited about this. Financially, we were able to budget this into the operating budget for next year, but I was able to purchase some of the manipulatives using grant money for this year, and I think it'll be a great implementation. Alongside that, another goal we had this year was OGAP. So OGAP stands for Ongoing Assessment Practices. OGAP is a framework and a way that you see math instruction, very similar to letters for literacy. We have OGAP for math. It's possibly not as popular, but similar methodologies. NHLI is the New Hampshire Learning Institute. For the past few years, they've been using grant money to make OGAP trainings available for all teachers and across the state for free. Many of our teachers have taken advantage of these free trainings. However, their grant funding has dried up, so that's been a very stressful situation for them. And they've been spending the majority of this year trying to figure out how we can continue this. We are fortunate enough to have an OGAP trainer who works in the district. Heather Burkett is a additive trainer. She was formerly a multiplicative trainer, and we were really hoping to capitalize on that this summer. However, they have redesigned the multiplicative program. So long story short, we are hosting multiplicative here June 23rd. Heather will not be able to be that trainer because the training has changed. However, we do have, I believe it's 28 people signed up. They are from surrounding districts. We do have some Hampstead teachers attending in different locations. None are attending our Hampstead training, unfortunately, but they are attending in other locations. So we will continue to try to find ways to make OGAP happen, even though NHLI's funding has shifted. And this last line is about the mentor program. So we'll advance to the next slide, please.
All right, so here are some more of our central school photos. You'll hear me talk in a few minutes about our One School, One Book evening. And up in the top left, you can see a student using her task card, if you will, to go between different stations. This is one that Miss Dyer was volunteering at, where they were making buttons. And on the top right is another photo from that same evening where students were coding B-bots to go through the town of Buttonville, which is where the story takes place. Down at the bottom left is a really fun collaboration with our preschool students, some second graders, and some middle schoolers. Our preschool teachers won a grant from the Gorham Grant about a year ago to revitalize our courtyard garden and to build some raised beds. Due to the lateness of the grant last year, they're beginning the work this year and really literally getting their hands dirty with kids. Mrs. Mahoney and Mrs. LaCroix have engaged a second grade classroom to support them, as well as some middle school students who have come down. And the final two photos on the bottom middle and bottom right are photos from our ABBA concert. Our Unified Arts team is something that we are always incredibly proud of. And this year, our third graders rocked our school with music from ABBA. And what you can see here is our students dressed and singing in their performance, as well as some of the terrific artwork that they make in art class with Mr. Torelli. Thanks. Oh, all right. In priority 3, fostering a positive school culture that honors the well-being of staff and students, we have continued development of our MTSS-B systems. This year, our staff contributed to a school-wide document outlining expected behaviors at the central school, and they've begun developing more consistent processes for access to tiered behavioral interventions. Grade 2 students this year hosted a school-wide assembly on good citizenship after learning more about the rules and expectations, specifically in the cafeteria, but in other parts of the building as well. And this year we had our first ever implementation of a kindness week that was school-wide. Our outcome for that is based on our numbers right now and our numbers last year for behavioral referrals. We've seen an 11% reduction in office behavior referrals from last year. But even more exciting is our Note Home system that we utilize to communicate with parents regarding behavior also has a positive side to it. And this year, our positive Notes Home increased to 156, up from 25 last year. So that's a 500% increase. And that's in large part to our para-educators that do a significant number of our lunch and recess duties, and they've really shifted their focus of catching kids doing good things and noticing those positive pieces to reinforce those types of behaviors. We were working on enhancing our professional learning regarding trauma-informed responses. Although that says completed, this is work that's going to continue in progress as we continue to learn more. This year, we had an opportunity to work with Charlie Applestein. He did a training in August with the leadership team as well as some of our teachers. And then he came for one of our opening days to provide another staff training to the full staff. In March of 2025, we engaged Janine Richards to come speak with our HCS staff. And then, of course, we've continued our work with our CPI training, which is our Crisis Prevention Institute, which helps to learn de-escalation strategies when children are really heightened. The real work in this area is beyond just the trainings. Our teachers have been given some tools in their toolbox, but now we have to work on ways to implement those, and what does that look like with our students here. The training, particularly with Janine Richards, has sparked some strong conversations about making sure that we are supporting all of our students at the highest levels possible and giving them what they need, so that way we can continue to develop that school climate and culture that is a safe, calm, inviting place to learn. And finally, we were working on implementing a series of staff wellness activities. And this year we had so much fun with that. And the best part is as we kind of move through these,
the staff have taken on and thrown ideas out and implemented them as well. So it's really become a community process and not just a leadership team. So we had a popcorn bar event, hot cocoa, soup and chili, lemonade, lots of food. Food brings people together. There was a kickball game. One of our teachers put together an outing to the Red Sox a couple of weeks ago. There was an egg hunt, and you wouldn't believe how competitive teachers can be when there's Easter eggs at stake, but they can be. There was a wonderful holiday party. There was a dungaree day that came out of a funny conversation that two staff members had about the word dungaree, and it turns out that's a word that you only know if you're over a certain age. And so, we busted out our jean jackets and wore them, and that was a really fun day. So there have been a lot of opportunities, like I said, both intentional and homegrown, that have really brought together that greater staff coherence, which also leads to that engagement in their work. I'm ready for the next one. All right, and here are a couple more photos for you. Up on the top left, we have one of our fourth graders being interviewed by WMUR. They came to visit us this year with a project that we did called Blankets for Hope, and this was an opportunity for our students to learn more about experiences that other people may have that may be experiencing homelessness. And our students made blankets and letters of encouragement, and they were featured on the evening news. On the top right is an exciting community event that we've just had, which is a program called No Brain the Same. And Meg Thompson came to visit. She met with two groups of students, K through 2 and 3 through 5. We were happy to welcome back our fifth graders. And she was teaching children about brains are all different. Even if we're brothers or sisters or family, our brains all work a little bit different. And the goal was to really increase empathy and awareness. On the bottom left is an example of one of our door decorating contests. Our very active student council this year sponsored a door decorating contest in the month of February around the theme of kindness and friendship. In the middle, we have our two winners from our mile run this year who are so proud of their achievement. And on the bottom right is another example of one of those fill your mug events when we did our popcorn bar, which was a little more like a trail mix bar, but super fun anyway. All right.
All right, so at HMS in the area of Priority 3, fostering a positive school culture that honors the emotional well-being of staff and students, I want to start by saying that in our AP interviews where we had our student group, one of the candidates asked the students, "Why are you participating in this interview?" And one of the 8th graders said, "Because our school culture has improved so much, and I want it to keep improving for years to come." And so that says it all. It says it all. So anyhow, our action strategies. So our first thing was to enhance school-wide service learning opportunities through our advisory program. So they were already doing so many different community service opportunities here at HMS. I wanted to target our advisory as a way to kind of push some stuff out. So in grade 5, we know we did the crayon initiative. I have to share, we collected 154 pounds of crayons, and we need to give a shout out to Lillian Vantran of Longhorn, who collected the crayons at Longhorn and brought them to our school, an additional 8 pounds of crayons. So really awesome job there. In 6th grade, we did our letters to veterans in November, and they did a winter coat drive, super successful. Our grade 7, they utilized Flex for community service and a lot of joint projects with HCS because they felt that they had more time in the Flex for that. Our grade 8 does outstanding community service between Saltbox Pantry, our National School Breakfast Week initiatives like the Cereal Box fundraiser, using the money from the Candy Cane fundraiser that we did for the Saltbox Pantry. So those are just some examples of our service opportunities at school. The next piece was implementing our staff wellness activities, including our Fill Your Cup initiative, and we wanted to complete at least 8 new wellness activities. So you can see there I listed a bunch of them. We had at least 8, so different things from various different food bars. I mean, who doesn't love food, right? So that's probably the majority of them there. I give away my parking spot as much as possible. I can walk, that's fine. We had an amazing race with our staff, which was really super fun, and over, I think, a month-long different challenges. We had a soup bar that was really awesome. We did an Easter egg hunt, so lots of really fun activities and just things to bring the staff together and let them know that they're appreciated. So I would call that completed. The next area was to enhance school culture through student leadership opportunities, such as our Leadership Council of Athletics, and also different mentoring opportunities between HMS and HCS. I would also say that that is completed. We have our LCA just thriving. In fact, they are running the Last Hawk Awards, so they are totally facilitating that. The group is doing so many amazing things. In terms of our mentoring opportunities, I can list a bunch of them. We had our Big Feet, Little Feet between kindergarten and 7th grade. We did a joint monster project with our 6th and 7th grade Flex, where they drew monsters. Then our HMS students actually made them, and then they brought them over, and then they wrote stories about the monsters together, which was super fun. We did, Mrs. Griffin did a collab, or did several collabs with 2nd grade classes, where they did scavenger hunts and they did habitat challenges. We know that Mr. Rem is doing the Growing Together collaborative garden project with our pre-K and 2nd grade students and our 7th and 8th graders. And they're building and designing mini greenhouses and to grow food and raise bed gardens, as Dr. Cheney said. We did a woodworking project where our students in 8th grade made little wooden figures, brought them over to the pre-K, and we painted them together, which was super fun. There's also a field guide project going on right now where Miss Downey and Mrs. Griffin have created these field guides, and they have maps of our campus, and the Central School kids are coming over to use the field guides. So tons of different collabs between the two schools, which is super, super fun, and I'm so proud of that. Some pictures I have, that's the Growing Together up in the top left. Those are some of our 8th graders presenting some of the science behind growing plants. On the top right, we have our LCA and the Hawk House supporting our basketball team. Let's see, in the middle, we have the Crayon Initiative, the students presenting at the school board meeting. On the bottom left, that's just a Fill Your Cup activity. We had a breakfast buffet for our teachers. It was pretty awesome. In the bottom right, that's our 8th graders that went shopping. So they took all the money that we had raised in the Candy Cane fundraiser over December, and they used that to purchase items, breakfast items, to stock the salt box pantry. Really, really cool. And so in the area of priority 4, improving communication for staff and community stakeholders. So the first thing we wanted to do is create additional volunteer opportunities for parents and community at HMS. And I have to say, it's something that I'm gonna call a future goal, because I just really haven't been able to dive into that the way that I wanted to. We wanted to increase our volunteer participation by 100%, and I don't think we're there at all. So I listed some of the things that we have done. One of the biggest things we're going to be doing on Thursday is having a whole bunch of 8th grade parents here decorating and getting ready for our 8th grade semi-formal. So that is brought back to HMS after several years, maybe decades of being in a different place. So that's pretty cool and exciting. But we need to create more opportunities for our parents and community to be in the school, and it's definitely a future goal for me. Moving on to the next one, the introduction of a new student-led podcast to highlight HMS news. So we wanted to create 10 podcasts. We were able to create 6 out of 10, but I am proud to say that the last one was a collaboration between middle school and central school. So we had our 4th grade central school students talk with our 5th graders about the transition to middle school. So super, super cool podcast. You can find that in my weekly update folder online. And then the third one was to empower student leaders to take an active role in communication within our community. So I would call that in progress too. We certainly have our podcasts. We have student-led assemblies. When I tell you they're student-led, they're student-devised, student-facilitated. They literally just give me their entire script and say, Mrs. Bernard, is this cool? So it really is awesome. They take hold of it, and they actually approach me and say, I want to do an assembly, and we empower them to do so. We have student leaders at the school board meeting, so now you get to hear them instead of me giving middle school highlights, which I think is way better. But there's some areas that I think we could continue to work on. I'd like to generate a student-generated calendar of activities, so that's a future goal of mine. I would like all announcements to be student-led. We have many that are, but not all. And then I would like to have students generate content for my newsletter and for social media. So that's just some future goals that I have. And so some pictures there. We have up in the top is some students presenting at a school board meeting. In the top right is just a parent volunteer talking to our 8th grade students about how plans for building a house. On the bottom left, we have a collab between our second grade class and Mrs. Griffin's class, and they're doing a scavenger hunt. In the middle, we have students recording a podcast. And then on the bottom right, that is our Hawk and our LCA at a pep rally.
All right, on to priority 4, improving communication for staff and community stakeholders. This year we had a goal to provide monthly lunch buddy opportunities and 2 family breakfast opportunities. We have hosted 7 lunch buddy events, and we had 1 family breakfast opportunity this year. What I'm really looking forward to is an additional growth to the program for 25-26. I'd like to look at something a little more frequently than monthly and have us consider what the parameters are for attending that program. So more to come, but it has been incredibly successful. We've hosted over 100 parents throughout all of these luncheons and breakfasts. The next goal was around engagement in community events during the 24-25 school year. We were hoping for at least 2 new or reimagined events for families, and we're excited that we brought Screenagers, the elementary edition, this fall. We had a volunteer orientation to bring in more volunteers to our school. We had a wildly successful literacy night where we partnered not only with our school staff, which included our reading specialist, our librarian, our ESOL teacher, and others, but we also brought in the local animal control officer, Maura, as well as the local children's librarian, who has actually designed some critter crates based on the novel that we read. And so it really did become bigger than just one school. It became a community event. Mrs. Bernard mentioned earlier our Bingo for Books collaboration with the Literacy Night here, and that really enhanced our opportunity. It was great to see the kids participate. Older siblings could go to other stations while the younger ones came and went here as well. And it brought a new energy to the program, which was really exciting. And finally, the No Brain the Same. I mentioned that in the area of understanding others, but also it was a community event in that this was really something that came from parents and was fundraised for by our community to bring this initiative to our school. So it was beyond what we as a school community thought was a great idea, but really came from the community of Hampstead, and we appreciated that support and that help.
And then finally, we had hoped to do weekly staff spotlights on social media, as well as considering podcasts, and this is going to remain a future goal. We did complete one podcast where some of our grade 4 students came up. As Mrs. Bernard said, not only can you find that in her weekly highlights, but it's also on our social media pages. So any rising 5th graders, tune in to get all the answers. And we've done sporadic staff spotlights throughout the year, for example, featuring our Teacher of the Year candidate and other teachers that have gone above and beyond with various initiatives. But we're looking forward to, in the years 25-26, really being more intentional with those opportunities and really purposeful with them. All right, and then priority 5, designing learning environments to match our educational philosophies. This year, and you've heard a lot about it at other board meetings, we have been working on the development of a special education program that reflects the current needs of our students, and the acronym for that is RISE. When we met with you in January, we had received program approval, but the work since then has really been focused on developing programming to meet the needs of our students. And we've been developing and implementing this year, and next year we're really excited to start off the year ready to go. Also, in partnership with the Department of Homeland Security, we conducted a safety audit of the Central School, and that was completed. We have reviewed the feedback. We've already made some adjustments, and we'll continue to look at ways to maintain and improve our safety. And finally, for HCS this year, we had another building project. And so it was our plan to provide staff space and time to develop their learning spaces. In elementary school, your classroom and the environment that you're building physically is a very important component of the overall learning experience. And so staff were moved to their permanent spaces as of January 2025. It was a little later than expected because we had some additional work in the 1940s wing that we did to really shore up the floor and make that building really safe and secure, and it's not going anywhere, so that's great news. But we are back to our programming at traditional capacity, and really excited to move forward with those 2 additional spaces. They've given us that tiny bit of breathing room that we needed to maintain our current programs. And here are the last few photos for HCS. Up at the top left, we have some friends out at recess. Mr. Torelli is one of our recess duty folks, and I have the honor of receiving multiple photos a week that he snaps for us out at recess. So many of these photo credits go to Michael. On the top right, we have a student engaged in some coloring work. It's one of our kindergarten students. On the bottom left is that dungaree day I mentioned to you, where all of our staff are posing in their jeans. In the middle, we have our gardening project. Those are our 2nd graders that have been supporting. And on this day, they were turning over the soil and making sure it had enough nutrients to do all the growing that the preschoolers wanted to do. And finally, on the bottom right is another example from our literacy evening. Our book was called The Sasquatch Escape, and it was about a veterinarian, and so the children could bring their magical animals or their stuffed animals to the imaginary veterinarians here, who are our staff, and checked out the animals and fixed them all up. So, thank you.
Last one. For HMS Priority 5, designing learning environments to match our educational philosophies, we know we conducted a safety audit in conjunction with the Department of Homeland Security. Done. We reviewed that. We looked at some different changes that we could make, long, medium, short-term goals. That one was already done. Next, we want to continue to enhance our outdoor learning activities. We've done several different outdoor learning activities, including our 5th grade Starry Night, our new 6th grade field trip to Camp Lincoln, our new 7th grade field trip to the cemetery. Our 7th grade does walk in the woods writing each week with Mrs. Gibbons. We have our green buckets, our outdoor classrooms to go. I'm really excited for the addition of our new science teacher, Erin O'Neill, who has extensive experience in outdoor learning. So I think she's going to bring a lot of that to the 8th graders next year. And then lastly, to enhance our professional learning around trauma-informed responses. Dr. Cheney described hers so eloquently that I'm just going to say at the middle school we did all of the same trainings, and we're building upon that as well, and need to continue to look at trauma-informed the instruction and consider that within our classrooms, and keep that area going. So that is it for me. I think I have some pictures. So again, I already had the picture there. That was our auditor that came in, who is a former HMS graduate, so I had to keep that in there. The top right is a picture from our 5th grade Starry Night. Really cool. On the bottom left, we have our jazz band welcoming our incoming 5th graders to HMS last week. That was really fun. In the bottom middle, I kind of cut it off there, but we have 2 therapy dogs in training. So they were brought in at Wellness Week, and hopefully they'll be in the schools a little bit more next year. And then again, another picture of our Hawk House at a basketball game. So I think that's it for me.
All right, so, we are always looking to the future, and, part of the discussion that we have at the end of the year is like, okay, what does next year look like? And again, as I said at the beginning, the driver of next year is self-study. That is, forming a steering committee, looking at a new guiding strategic plan or other type of document. So that really is at the center of the work that we're going to do next year. But along the way this year, we also know that we need to develop and enhance in-district programs to support the unique needs of students. That is both Tier 1, Tier 3. Again, Dr. Cheney talked about, the building project at the Central School allowed us to build new in-district special education support that we otherwise would not have been able to do. And I know we've had conversations about, keeping students in district, ensuring that we are educating our students with disabilities in their community schools, and, the development of further programming in special education, but also in, Tier 2, when we talk about MTSS A and B. We're going to continue that work. A big piece of next year, we, as Nicole indicated, we have a new math program. So monitoring the implementation of that and supporting teachers in that work is critically important. The literacy leadership team is looking at our reading program. We know that we need, that we have data. We talked about the special education LEA determinations. Some of our students, there's a disproportionality with some of our students with disabilities in their performance level. Some of that has to do with reading. We really need to dive into that data. We also know that we have a percentage of students not reading at grade level that we need to address that. And we do have a lot of dedicated resources for our reading program. We're going to hear a little bit about that later on. So we need to make sure that we are making efficient use of our resources. We're evaluating our programming, and that the programs that we have in place are evidence-based. We also want to incorporate additional opportunities for service learning. This was just something that was really such an amazing experience this year for our students. The collaboration that we have with St. Anne's, but it goes beyond that as well. It brings such joy to our community, and we want to just look for ways. Not only do we want to work on the things that need improvement, we want to work on the things we're good at, right? Because that fuels us. And that's the future development of service learning will help us achieve that. And then again, and I kind of touched on this, but continuing to build systems for MTSS A and B. A lot of great work has occurred this year. I mean, you saw that with some of the data we have around discipline. There's still a tremendous amount of work that needs to be done, creating better systems, memorializing those systems, ensuring that resources align to that. So that's a little bit of the flavor. We also, at the very end of the year, will do leadership surveys to staff and to parents as well. We also get input from the board, and that will drive. So this list will adapt, evolve, change going into next year based upon some of the feedback from our stakeholders. So at this time, I'll entertain any questions that the board may have. I appreciate it was a long presentation, but there's so much great stuff that's gone on this year that it's worth the extra time.
First off, I'll just say how much I appreciate all the work that went into this presentation and all the work that went into completing those goals throughout the year. I know it's a daunting task. I had some questions and comments. I promise I'll keep this brief so that we're not here until midnight. But for Dr. Cheney, for whatever it's worth, I hope that the Staff Spotlight initiative starts tomorrow. I think it's high time that we start celebrating our teachers in the community and posting that on social media. I think that'll be really popular and awesome and really fulfilling, I think. For Amy, I did have a question around your win room. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard you mention that basically academic supports could be going on at the same time as behavioral supports.
Yeah.
And I'm genuinely curious what the experience has been with those two things happening in the same room together. How is it going? And if it's not going well, are there plans to kind of rectify that?
Well, we're not putting a student that's not regulated into a room like that. So it's a student that's doing reflection. Sure. It's a student we've already processed with, maybe doing some kind of accountability project, an apology letter, whatever it might be. So we have, different spaces within that room and different staff that are working with those different kids. And the kids don't know why each other are in there because it's nobody else's business. Mm-hmm. So they work cohesively and simultaneously with each other, just as a regular classroom would.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Absolutely.
Central School? Sorry, here it is. I'm curious how restorative justice looks at HCS and how do you guys use it? Because I know we had that training.
Yeah, so we had that training, I want to say 2 school years ago, and we've also continued that with our new staff. So restorative practices looks like circles in classrooms, and not just homerooms, right? So in elementary school, kids are self-contained for most of the day. But when you go down to PE, for example, they start many of their lessons with a circle. So it's happening throughout the day just to build that foundation of the classroom community. And then when we're having, so to the restorative part, so that's the foundation, but when we get to that restorative part, as a student has to leave the classroom to process a behavior or to re-regulate or whatever it may be, they then work on what happened and how do we fix it. And sometimes how do we fix it is as simple as I need to help my friend rebuild the tower that I knocked over because I was really frustrated. And sometimes it's bigger than that, and it's I was really frustrated at this event and I ruined it for my class, and so I need to figure out a way to work with my teacher and my friends to enter back into that community. But whenever an administrator processes, we do follow up with the classroom teacher, and we always check in, are we ready to come back to community, and what do we need to do to get there and support the students?
Leave it on.
Are you having restorative circles with students?
So yes.
As part of that process.
Yes, depending on the nature of what occurred, our school counselor and our school psychologist will often go in and facilitate those as the tiered circles, right? Teachers feel really comfortable with that tier 1, but if there's some sort of a process that needs to be dealt with on a bigger level, our school counselor or our school psychologist facilitate those.
All right. Last question, I promise. This one's for Nicole. You mentioned the mentor program, and you said there were, I believe, 4 mentees available.
4 building mentors.
4 building mentors available all year. I'm curious what the experience has been, or if are we tracking like how frequently those mentors are being reached out to and utilized?
I don't track. I know the relationship between mentee and mentor is pretty sacred and confidential. The reason we have 4 building mentors, though I do want to clarify, is that in the past, you would have the same mentor year after year. I feel as though that is not a strength of the program. I know people develop very tight bonds, but these jobs have such diverse responsibilities that I think we would be mistaken to think that any one person should be the person to give advice for up until 5 possible years to achieve tenureship. So what I want is our new hires to have a single point of contact for the day-to-day kind of grind things, but then have 4 other experts. Maybe one is in special ed, maybe one is really good at, really high-level instructional practice and good questioning techniques, and then maybe someone else is really strong with family relationships and building connections with children. These are unique skills, and it's hard to find one person that's good at all of these things and not exhaust them with all of our new staff. The other piece of our mentor program that I actually didn't put on the slide is our site-based license process. So we are seeing teachers coming into the profession now not through the traditional 4-year teaching school. We are recruiting people from other industries who they go on what we call a site-based license. So they require a single point of contact who already has that certification. And I needed a way to compensate. In the past, we've never compensated those people, and we're just asking them to use their license. So this new program is kind of layered in that you have the building people, you have a one-on-one point of contact, and then you, if required, you also might have a site-based license who carries the same certification and can do that paperwork.
Great.
Is that?
That's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I thought of one more question.
It's not perfect. We have a lot to revise and improve, but I'm happy with year 1. It's a shift.
Great. I thought of one more question for Amy. It's in regard to the enrichment program. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, I took in a lot of information tonight.
Okay.
But the whole enrichment program of basically differentiated instruction being rolled out to 8th grade.
Yeah.
That was 8th grade only, correct?
For this one, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm assuming there are plans in the works to roll that out to other grade levels?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that differentiated instruction isn't happening. We're talking about taking a class like an accelerated class and removing that and really being mindful about the differentiation instead.
I guess
so
that's kind of what I'm getting at is
right.
like, can we push the rigor for students that, can we challenge them in an
Yes.
additional way?
Yes, like if we look
across
at
all grade levels.
Yep, and if we look at even the accelerated Spanish program, I'd like to do the same thing with that, and I think that we can do that across all grade levels. Yes.
Great, thank you. Board members, any other questions? I will turn my mic off now.
So I actually have a kid in both schools. So I just wanted to take a minute and commend all the leadership here, but also the educators that are here, not here, for all their efforts building this program together between the different schools. I saw benefits to the students. I heard it from other parents. There's a lot of work that goes in there. A lot of the programs just with the enrichment activities, being outside, the leadership opportunities. I had the pleasure of watching the interaction between the educators and the students on numerous occasions, and the kids were loving it, and they're flourishing under that. So I think that is helping with the culture in both buildings, and bridging that back into the parent community, I think will be key. So I liked hearing about other opportunities for parents to come in and volunteer. Really, the culture will continue to grow in a positive direction if we bring more of the community in. So just thank you.
I just had quick comments. Catching kids doing good things, awesome. The wellness stuff, creating that community, that bond, because education is a weird subgenre of the world, and the people that understand each other, it's much better when they're hanging out and blowing off steam together, doing fun things. I love the idea of student-created content and getting that out to the community. That's such an awesome idea. And then again, building systems, MTSA and B, we have a lot of talent when it comes to teaching in this community. But you want to build systems that find the kids that need help, and that's really, really hard, and that takes time. And I think moving that direction, and we're moving positively in that direction, I think that's highly, highly important to make sure that every kid in the district gets the opportunity to succeed. So thank you.
Thank you. We good? All right,
Moving on in the agenda, we have the 2025-2026 HMS student class schedule.
So this may look familiar because I presented this in March. So I'm going to keep this short and sweet. I know there were some questions with respect to the schedule. We've made a very minor change since I presented it, and we were able to maintain pretty much the integrity of it. So again, in looking at the schedule, really the goal was to maximize the learning minutes in the core subjects. And we did that by removing X block as much as possible. We shortened advisory a little bit, but we will make use of some early release time with extended advisories. I think I'm really proud to say that with the class sizes, we can actually move to an hour-long core classes for our fifth graders, less transitions. So this is going to be a nice way to bridge that transition from central school to middle school and changing classes, but in a slower, more methodical way. Our 6th through 8th graders will have 48-minute classes with additional core classes. STEAM is out, actually, it'll just be Spanish. So the current schedule, I mean, you can kind of look at this, but again, the cons and what we were trying to get away from was the X block, having 7th and 8th graders passing at the same time in the hallway gets a little crazy. 5th graders, too many transitions. Having Spanish as a UA is inconsistent. And our UA teachers lack common planning and meeting time, which is really challenging for them not to have that time together. Our proposed schedule, we had to tweak this a little bit, so I'm actually, you know what, I'll talk about the pros and cons really quickly, but then I'm going to skip to the newer version. So we do have that hour-long classes for our 5th graders. There's no X block with the exception of 7th grade. That is a change, so I can explain that a little bit later. We do have our Unified Arts common meeting time. The longer classes allow our specialists to push into classes more easily and readily. Our 7th and 8th graders are not exactly in the hallway at the same time. Again, the cons are we do have a slightly shorter advisory and flex period. Actually, there is no overlap with the UA, so that actually changed. So the changes here. So our changes are, we actually, our unified arts are all in individual, which just makes it so it's way easier to schedule the UA classes. But we did, with the having to use the default budget, we couldn't justify, our 7th grade class is so small, 67 kids. We couldn't justify another teacher in that space where I had to lose a teacher through attrition with the budget cuts. So therefore, we did have to implement the X block. So an X block is a rotating core class. Every 4 days, they have that same class. So I want to just reiterate that this still is core instructional time minutes. It's just that they would go to science one day, social studies one day, math one day, ELA one day, and then it rotates. I don't think any of us think that that is ideal, but at least that does allow for core minutes there. So this is I think it's wonderful that we were able to maintain this. Again, with middle school schedules, it really is dictated by our class size, and unfortunately that does change, and we have a wide variety between 7th and 6th grade. Our 7th grade class is like 111 as opposed to 6th grade being 67. So that does dictate how many teachers we have. But this we are moving forward with, and I'm really excited about it. So I don't know if you have any questions, but I'll take them.
I'll just say I'm pleased to see the expanded instruction time. I know that was a priority or a concern of the board, and I also just appreciate the amount of thought and effort that went into really addressing the cons of the current schedule, basically, like taking what's not working well and really trying to find a solution for it. So great work on that.
Thank you.
I appreciate adjusting based off of class size, and I appreciate that teachers are willing to go along with that and to do what's best for kids to make sure to maximize for as many kids as possible. So that's good.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the student Chromebook donation with Joe Dyan.
Good evening. I am asking the board to approve the gift of Chromebook devices to the 8th grade students. If approved, our department will deprovision the 8th grade devices, which will allow students to log on with their personal Google accounts. We will be collecting 8th grade devices along with the other grades next week, and we will keep them in the HMS main office. Guardians will be able to pick these devices up until the first week of July. Typically, about 40% of 8th graders wish to take these devices and use them, and what we do as a department with the remaining devices is keep the parts for repair for other Chromebooks that are still in service.
Board members, any questions or comments on that? Yes.
So
I will make a motion to have the district donate or gift the school-issued Chromebook devices to the outgoing HMS 8th graders.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the copier and printer bid with Mr. Dowd.
Mr. Chairman, in front of you, you have a packet or a couple pages with SPC listed at the top of them. I'll reference those pages. I'm here to discuss our copier and multifunction printer setup and situation. I'd like to give you a little bit of background on how that works. I know that we're running really late, and I can appreciate that, but I think it's important for you to know. We have about over 50 devices in our district. Many years ago, we had individual contracts for, well, three sets of contracts with Konica, Canon, resellers to have our equipment leased and installed and serviced. The paper chase on this was very difficult. I think it was very difficult because we had an inconsistency in the brand of printer that we had. It was very, very difficult. It was a very unwieldy and very bulky process. I was introduced to a company called SPC, Specialized Purchasing Corporation, a number of years ago, and we entered into an agreement with them to run a bid for us. And the way that they do their bidding is that they include our bid with millions of other pages of copies and prints out to the manufacturers directly. So typically we're not dealing with the middleman, we're cutting out the middleman, the reseller, everyone we're going directly to the manufacturer, their reps, to get prices. Currently, we have, we're making our last payment, and I'll say our last lease payment, I'll call it a lease, it's not really a lease, our last financing payment in August. So SPC has gone out and has rebid our needs to several of the manufacturers. And we could maybe push things another year, but in this case, I think that the deal is a little bit too good to pass up. The current equipment that we have, the first tranche of purchasing that we did with Specialized Purchasing Corporation was for the Rico brand of products. Rico, particularly the products we have, are not very intelligent machines. I don't think that we would characterize our luck as the best with them, and that's okay. They were the exceptionally low-cost bidder at the time, and I'm okay to take some heat in the district for that, including in my own office, and I've had experiences myself where it's been very, very difficult. So the timing is optimal. The longer we go without, the longer the equipment, the older the equipment gets, the more expensive maintenance is on that equipment. So what you see in front of you is our present situation on that very first page. And Joe, I think I may have a slide if you wanted to put it up at present. The present situation is that we are on the hook for about $50,600 per year. 30,000, almost 31,000 of that is attributable to what I'll call the lease. Again, that's just our financing. We use financing through a bank in Maine, and SPC does a lot of business with them, and they're able to offer government-friendly, tax-beneficial financing that we, as a governmental entity, can take advantage of. So right now, our costs are about $50,600, and what they've come back with are three primary bids. One from Rico for $41,482, which is a significant savings. Another from SimQuest, which is also Konica Minolta at $45,118.87, and Toshiba for $46,387. My proposal would be to move forward on one of these, and it will likely be SimQuest. We are going to liaison internally, Joe, myself, and the operations folks, to see what would work best for us. The interest rate that we have right now is about 3.29%. We're going up to about a little over 5% with this potential financing arrangement. And even with that, and even with the super low bid that we took last time, you can see that we're saving at least 10%, even going with SimQuest, Konica Minolta at $45,118. I think these machines will provide a better experience for our users, hopefully more uptime and better service. And that's not to disparage Rico. I just, again, at that time, that was that bid was too low to pass up. And now we have an opportunity to advance that a little bit. SPC is a company that aggregates our bids with approximately, I think, 105,000 other student districts. So they're partnering with us, and considering there's only 170,000 public students in the state of New Hampshire, that's a huge swath of coverage. So they've been able to really benefit. We've been able to benefit by their leverage and their size and the amount of volume that they're able to bid on. And so that's where we're at. Page 2 shows what our current situation is. We have a total number of units of 56. Under the proposal, we would go to 57 to meet a need, which we've subsequently identified. And yeah, that's that. There's an amortization schedule attached as well. I'm happy to answer any questions. I just want to give some direction of what we're looking for from the board here. And this is the work that we typically do on the administration end, so that's why it's coming to you at this point. We've had this in the works to be able to act on the fact that we're up against our last lease payment coming in very, very soon. If you're in agreement with this, and we're not there yet, but if you're in agreement with this, I have 2 motions, which I'm not sure if they end up in everyone's packages or not. One would allow the tax-exempt lease for a not-to-exceed cost of $122,000. That's over 5 years. And that you would authorize the superintendent or myself. Because I'm so involved in the operational aspects of it, I would prefer the superintendent be the person nominated for that. So that's where we're at. You can even see in the service and supplies for color, service and supplies for black compared to where we are right now. Color copies go up quite a bit, but black and white copies go down quite a bit at almost 7,000 versus 9,400. So I think we're going to benefit greatly from this current bid process and the opportunity to have or to acquire more reliable machines that are a little bit more intelligent. The machines that we have do not, for example, if you put a double-sided page in to scan, you have to tell it that it's double-sided. You have to tell it that it's color. We spend more time, not us, but I think in the district, people spend more time having to reprint documents that come out not double-sided. It's happened to me. It happens quite frequently. So I think being able to have this match our needs a little bit better and save some money at the same time is not a bad proposition. As I mentioned, we're in the current lease arrangement because that was the lowest cost bidder by far the last time, and you can see that those costs are we're still able to get maybe 10% lower in this current bid process. And I think that's a reflection of SPC's size and scale. And I think that if we were to put this off for a year or 2 years, we're going to incur additional maintenance costs potentially, and we are going to be subject to whatever price increases that they have and be stuck with that for the next 5 years.
So if I understand you correctly, we're proposing SimQuest, correct, as the one to move forward with. Board members, any questions or concerns about the printer bid?
As long as they have a good reputation and we feel like we're going to get service when we need it, I'm all for saving money. That's awesome.
Right. Yeah, I'm pleased to see that it's a cost decrease, which is always a plus.
Yep.
So at this point, if no one has any other questions or further discussion, I'll make a motion that the board approve the proposed tax-exempt lease with MST Government Leasing, LLC, for the purposes of refinancing and funding photocopy equipment leases, including consultant fees and related costs of issuances of such leases in an amount not to exceed $122,887.56 at an interest rate of 5.19% per year through August 1st, 2030.
So moved.
Can I get a second? Questions or discussion? All approved.
Thank you.
And then I will also make the second motion that the board authorizes the superintendent to execute and deliver the tax-exempt lease with MST Government Leasing LLC on such terms and conditions discussed and provided to the board, and to execute and deliver any such documents required to execute the contract with Specialized Purchasing Consultants, Inc.
So moved.
Questions or discussion? All approved.
Thank you again.
Thank you. All right. Request to add district reading specialist position. Bob Thompson.
All right. So this evening I'm asking for the board to deliberate and take action on a request to add a district reading specialist position. And just to provide some context and a little bit of recent history, during the budget process, there were a lot of discussions, and I even heard some of that this evening too, in regards to the amount of money we're paying in contracted services. So a contracted service is someone who's not an employee of the district. We often have to utilize contracted services for a variety of services. Sometimes it's nursing services, sometimes it's reading services, psychological services, and we continue to see in the area of special ed an increase in contracted services. There are a variety of issues with contracted services. One is the cost. The second is there are a variety of Department of Labor regulations that require districts to make earnest efforts in hiring their own employees as opposed to contracted employees. And so we have approximately $280,000 of reading services that are provided by contracted service providers. The senior leadership team, under the leadership of our Director of Student Services, Melissa McDonald, have evaluated the contracted services for reading and believe the addition of a district employee who would be responsible for a reading specialist and provide services at both or either one of the schools will allow us to reduce contracted services. So essentially what I'm asking for the board to do, because it's the board's authority to add new positions. So essentially we would take money from contracted services. If you were to approve this, we take it from contracted services, it's already budgeted for, we'd move it over to salary, and we would hire a reading specialist. And I can tell you, we are in the process of looking at an internal hire for the reading specialist job. So I'm very, very confident that if the board were to approve this, that we would be able to fill this position. You may recall that was a question that we had in the fall, was we can create the position, but that doesn't mean we're necessarily going to fill it.
Right.
I'll also, just to give a little bit more context, reading seems to be the low-hanging fruit. We have the staff that can provide the service. If we create the position, the money is there. We're going to continue between now and into the summer to continue to evaluate some of our other contracted services to see if there's any other either cost savings or any other way that we could utilize our own people to provide the service. So I'll entertain any questions the board might have.
So in hiring an in-district reading specialist, the assumption is that there will be long-term cost savings. Can we definitively confirm that at this point?
That is likely. I can't definitively say that because, again, we haven't made any decisions about, final decisions about who would fill that role. And it is important to clarify because I do think that this came up tonight. The board has the authority to create new positions. The board also hears nominations from the superintendent to hire new staff. We will often have transfers. Transfers are not the purview of the board, they're the purview of the superintendent. So, tonight I'm not bringing you a nomination because we're looking at the possibility of transferring a staff member. So the answer around the cost benefit, generally speaking, it is cheaper to hire our own people than it is to hire contracted services. But it's not always the case when you look at someone's benefits package, their years of service, their educational status. So Right now, I can't give you an answer to that question, but generally speaking, it is cheaper to be able to hire our own people.
Hold on. Okay, yeah, if we contract, we have to pay their salary and their benefits. And then the people, the contractor, versus if we have them in-house, we have to pay their salary and benefits. So contracting in general will be higher, I would assume. But yeah, I understand that you can't make a definitive promise, but it's likely, correct?
And you know, an analysis of that would be something that I could provide that information to the board at a later date after we have finalized the hiring process.
I guess I'm just going to express my concern about reading. Being a special educator and someone that provides reading services and having worked in a few districts, I am concerned about the amount of money we're spending on outside reading consultants and that we would have 2 reading specialists in a school of our size. And I know there could be a lot of reasons why this is happening, whether it's the way IEPs are written or we don't have trained staff, how our MTSS model is set up, but I feel like I'm very concerned about that. And it could be if we have this many students, and I don't know how many are not reading at grade level, whether they're in a tier 2 or 3 intervention, that tells me something's up with tier 1 instruction when you have that many kids not.
Yeah, and this has been an extensive conversation that we've had as a leadership team. And this is a conversation that Andy and I had in planning the agenda for tonight. Because you're right, doing a comprehensive evaluation, like our district literacy team doing a comprehensive evaluation of our reading program, bringing in, more evidence-based practices. In the ideal world, that work happens first and then we evaluate our needs. The reason why I think now is the time to do it is because for budgeting purposes, we budget for a certain contracted amount based upon our current need. So we're walking into next year knowing that we need approximately $280,000 worth of contracted reading services, and then putting someone in this position could have cost savings. It prevents some entanglements with the Department of Labor, and quite frankly, there's often value added to having our own staff versus contracted employees. That's not to say we'll still need some contracted reading support services, and the people that do provide those services do a great job. But there's a little bit more flexibility when we have our own staff in there. So, and I said this to Andy when we were planning the agenda, my hope would be the board would approve the position, and knowing that the board has an expectation that next year we're going to see some results, that we approve the position, and we need to come back with the data. There needs to be some accountability around some improvements in the reading program.
It has to be a value add.
Yeah, yes. I feel like even if we start, and even if we become successful, the reading specialist can help out with tier 1, especially with new teachers, what Nicole was talking about, having specialized help with certain teachers to do different things, and then they can move back and forth. I think it's a good idea. I'll make a motion. Make a motion to...
Can I ask a question before you make the
Sure.
motion? I guess I'm just concerned that if we're going to add this position in and things change, right, because this person will be added to the budget, I'm assuming, we're probably going to need them for the foreseeable future, but what happens if our needs change?
So we are constantly evaluating our staffing levels, especially around the budget season. And wow, I would love to get to a place where we were able to make such improvements in reading that we didn't require all of the services. The protection for our staff members is that, there's flexibility for our staff, and this is a really great thing. You could hypothetically teach, first grade for 15 years and then move into a reading specialist position or a special education position, and you maintain your level of seniority. So there's no risk to the employee if we were to say we don't necessarily need the position, because our RIF policy is considers factors like your education, years of service. So I would love to get to a place where we could reduce because you are correct. Most schools do not have 2 reading specialists. It is a requirement under ED 306 that we have one at the elementary school, which we do, but we have 2. We also have 2 here as well. That's a lot, you know, and I think the addition of this, I wouldn't ask for it if I didn't think that it had the opportunity to reduce costs. And
So this is a 3rd reading specialist.
yeah, and really how we're categorizing this is that this is sort of a district reading specialist. There, after, you know, as the year wraps up, you know, we'll go into next year knowing where we can put this individual. The goal would be to try to house them largely at one school if possible. And right now that looks like that would be mostly HCS. But we also have contracted reading services here at the middle school. So that person may travel, and anyone that would go into that position would be aware that it may involve working across both schools.
I guess I just want to put it out there. I want to give everybody what they need, but I do think something is broken somewhere, and I just want to make sure that we're going to get some answers about where this breakdown is and how we're resolving it. Because
Yep, Denise has a question.
2's a lot, and
Yep.
3's wow.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And we're spending a lot of money on contracted services. Like, I want to, our own people should be able to be providing this.
So I definitely hear what Missy's saying. I seem to recall previous meetings where there was discussion about younger grades coming up that we're going to have a higher percentage of need. So is that where some of this is coming from? Is a perceived understanding that in the next year we're going to have more need coming up through the grades for this kind of support?
No, well, that is true. However, this is based on, so when we go to budget for special education services, the Student Services Department literally goes IEP by IEP, saying, okay, this is the schedule of our, special education reading specialist. Here are some, here are the additional services that are needed, and some of it is the amount of services, the other is the type of service. Some of our services are delivered off-site. We have students that go to Lexington Academy. Just because we bring in a reading specialist doesn't necessarily mean that we are replacing their current reading program, but we've identified that we can bring in a reading specialist to be able to service some of our students on IEPs based upon their current need. Now, we've also had conversations with building principals about, doing a better job in that, MTSS-A, that tier 2 group of students who are not yet identified, but if they get that extra boost of reading, we may prevent them from having to go on to an IEP. But honestly, right now, we are really looking at trying to fill the services that are currently being provided by contracted services, so that shifting it to be able to work in more regular education right now is not really on the table. And I have to say too, because I wouldn't bring it forward if I didn't think we can't make the progress we need, because I know I'm going to have to come back here with some data supporting the improvement of the reading services. And our team knows that we need to make some changes in our literacy and reading programs, and we have. And I think this is a step that's going to help support that.
And you mentioned evidence-based practices and wanting to move more towards that. Is that something that we will kind of put, especially if the person is a district-wide reading specialist, towards something like Orton Gillingham certification, like making that a requirement to be qualified for the job?
Yeah, and so when we're talking about students with disabilities, they typically have, there are requirements for them to have evidence-based programs. So what we do again is you're looking at the totality of, these are the students that require reading services. Here's the programs that they are, typically involved in, whether it's Wilson or Orton Gillingham. And so, now that we have this additional person, we can look at the utilization of all of our reading specialists to make sure that we're meeting the areas of needs that kids have.
Make your motion.
I'd like to make a motion to add a reading specialist position
questions or further discussion? Again, I'll make the kind of stipulation that you do come back to the board and report to us on the progress at some point next year to kind of prove the value there.
Yeah, I see some confident head nodding from members of my leadership team who are really the people who are the ones getting this work done. Mm-hmm. And there's been a lot of solid work that's been done. So.
All approved. Yeah. All right, moving on to fund balance retention. Mr. Dowd.
Thank you, Mr. Cabarrus. I will note that on your last action, you've approved the position. Obviously, that's going to be funded from the existing budget, so we'll be coming along with a budget transfer request once the details are certain, probably in the late summer or fall, just to let you know. So what we're here for, this agenda item, is to speak to our fund balance retention. This fund balance retention is an election under New Hampshire RSA 198 4B that allows school districts to retain a portion of their unused year-end unassigned general fund balance. We can retain up to 2.5% of our total net assessment, and that's to be used in certain contingency situations. This amount lapses every year, so when that amount is not renewed, we would have no fund balance retained. This is something you need to do every year. It does not automatically continue to grow like a capital reserve fund, for example. Our maximum this year is 2.5% of the net assessments, or the total possible that the board could elect to hold as fund balance retained is $775,841. I doubt you're going to be holding that much, but that's your cap. You have in front of you budget to actual projections for the year, showing, which we reviewed last month, showing an expense surplus of potentially $1 million, $1,022,000, revenue surplus of $153,544 for a total estimated gross surplus of $1,175,544. We have the current fund balance retention that you elected a year ago. That amount is $200,000. So the amount, without taking any action to renew the fund balance retention, would be returned to the taxpayers of $1,375,544. This does not take into consideration the fact that we have a capital reserve contribution of $150,000 that was voted by the voters in March. So this does not reflect that. I'm happy to address any questions you have on the projections or on the surplus. If you turn the page over, you'll find a neat history of our gross surplus, as well as encumbrances, what we've had for capital reserve contributions, fund balance retained, and what we've sent back to the taxpayers. And that last line is unassigned fund balance returned. So you can see what the history is. Here, the numbers have been really all over the place. From 2017 to 2024, ranging from $200,000 to $677,683, with an average fund balance retention of $401,000. These funds would be available to be used through certain procedures and processes if we essentially ran out of money. So if we had a catastrophic roof collapse in one of the buildings, which I'm not anticipating, or we had something else like that come up, we would have the funds on hand to be able to address that. That would cause us to go over our budget, our expense budget, theoretically. And really, we would have to be out of funding, or at least foreseeably out of funding, in order for us to act on any fund balance retention funds that we have to dip into.
So the average fund balance over the last, 8 is 400,000, and the average return to the taxpayer is $1 million.
Correct.
Okay. So something we need to consider is open enrollment is on the table at the state level, which could create wild fluctuations in budgeting for districts, because we do not know or understand what the finalization of that is, which makes me think that we should retain more than literally from the last meeting to this meeting. I think that we need to retain more in the 200,000?
Playing devil's advocate, looking at the community climate and taxpayers and the budget being rejected this past year, does it make sense to return as much as possible?
What happens if we run out of money? Do we have to call a special meeting, or?
There's procedures through the Education Commissioner's office. This is a little bit confusing because there's a new statute on the books, but the voters have to vote and opt into that statute to benefit from those more simplistic procedures. They've made it a lot easier. That's something maybe we can consider putting on the ballot for next March. But the difference is that new legislation allows for up to 5% fund balance retention, which I just can't see us ever doing. But we may benefit from being able to access it a little bit easier in the event that we do need to dip into it.
So for me, I think, honestly, in my head, I was thinking 500,000, but if the average is 400,000, we'd still be returning 1.275, which is more than the average. Actually, it would be more than every year except for 2020. I am super nervous about open enrollment and how it is going to affect budgeting and our ability to predict what we're going to have to take care of.
I was leaning towards something like 300,000 based on what you said about potentially needing it to increase, but having it be more of a moderate increase than last year.
I do think we need to be mindful of the current feelings of the taxpayers and just what transpired with the vote, being mindful to that, but also what's going to happen with us. So open enrollment reality is, how much would our cost drive up if we were to have to accept additional students? Our capacity is limited by the space that we have. So I don't know that they could mandate that we add another classroom to accommodate, another 50 kids that want to come into Hampstead. So I'm trying to be realistic with what that bump might actually look like. So if you're retaining like 300, 400, does that help you adjust to whatever might shift with the open enrollment matters? And allow us to, because I'm thinking about some of the infrastructure things that were pulled out. If we have something catastrophic that happens at one of the schools that's going to cost us $300K to remedy, I want to make sure that we have enough there to be able to take care of that.
And we do have, I know capital reserve can only be used in certain areas, but we do have a capital reserve fund for roof repairs, for instance.
So it depends on the student. We already have an excellent reputation for student services. So if you have students coming in that may require, students could be 100,000, 250,000. You could have one student that could literally eat through most of the 300,000 fund balance retained. It's possible. I'm
just trying to find balance here.
Yeah. I mean, the better option is that people reach out to their representatives and push back against open enrollment. When do we have to have the decision for fund balance retained?
So from a technical perspective, I only need it for completion of my state forms, which are due in August.
Okay.
So if you were going to be meeting prior to that, you could also push the vote up
August
until
1st, August 30th?
September 1st.
September 1st?
Yeah.
I think we may need to wait.
Table it.
Yeah, I think we need to wait and see what the legislation looks like, because that will give us more information.
Yep, that's fine. All right, we will table that topic at this point. Thank you. All right, moving on to the 2024-25 superintendent evaluation wrap-up. So the Board voted to approve the superintendent's written evaluation per procedure CBI-R. Additionally, the board voted to approve a 4% merit increase to Superintendent Thompson's salary next fiscal year effective July 1st, 2025, as well as a 4% performance cash bonus payable to Mr. Thompson on July 1st, 2025, as allowed per his 4-year employment contract with the Hampstead School District dated September 12th, 2023.
All right, somebody in the public had asked about the budgeting for this, so Bob can receive up to 5% for both, so we have to budget for that, and then the decision that we make of afterwards comes down to that. I think, like when you talk about reasoning, superintendents with experience are really hard to find right now, and I think, like Bob said, we want a superintendent that has a vision and is going to make hard decisions and push forward. And I think Bob's process and his experience and his passion is incredibly important for this district. And I think I am fully in support of him and his vision for this district that's been going forward.
Right. Board members, any other questions or comments?
I don't know, is the public aware of how we make the decision to evaluate the superintendent? Like the process, are they allowed to know that, or like how do we?
I mean, we have mentioned this over several meetings of what the process looks like of getting basically feedback from the multiple stakeholders of Bob's team. So it is really a 360 evaluation.
And that we review that.
We review the 360 feedback. We give our own feedback. It's the living, breathing, interactive document of evaluating our superintendent and the competencies and how he's rated in each of those areas.
It's also in comparison to other superintendents where Bob is in the middle of the pack and for the statewide and for
you mean compensation?
For compensation, yeah. And for his experience level is probably underpaid in comparison to a lot of other superintendents. And there are literally districts out there that don't even have superintendents right now.
Okay. Board members, any other questions or comments on that? Okay, moving on. Policies, second reading. So in your packets, you have policy ACN, accommodation of nursing mothers. The required policy is not on the books per state and federal laws mandating accommodations in the workplace for employees who have lactation or lactation-related needs. Let's go ahead and look that over. And this policy highlights both the accommodation for staff and potentially students.
I'll make a motion to adopt policy ACN.
Second.
I'll just say I sat in on the policy meeting to discuss this, and there was a lot of thorough discussion around making this as accommodating as possible, and really entertaining all different scenarios of what's realistic, what works the best. So I just want to acknowledge the effort of the policy committee in putting this one forward and the effort that went into making it right. Any other questions or discussion? All approved.
Can I just quickly add, while we're on the topic of policy?
Yes.
I meant to mention during our strategic plan deliverables, so the board this year has approved 43 policies. That's a lot. So I just want to acknowledge the board's, commitment, to updating policies, adding new policies. But my quick math, I went through the board meeting minutes and came up with 43. That's a pretty remarkable feat, so.
All right, moving on to board comments and correspondence.
I wanted to apologize for mispronouncing the U.S. Secretary of Education's name. It is McMahon. I said it wrong at the last meeting.
The air has been cleared.
And just remind people, public comments are open until June 20th on her plan and priorities.
Board members, we have historically not held our final meeting for the school year. And I'm just wondering what people's thoughts are in doing that, and just kind of giving some background around that. We all know that the goal is to find an assistant principal by that July 1st deadline. So that means that in the event that Bob does bring forward a candidate or multiple candidates to the board, we do have the opportunity to hold a special meeting where that could happen in lieu of the regular meeting.
Do we have other business that needs to be done on the 24th?
The only thing that you tabled, and again, we can do this in August or at a special meeting, would be some decisions around the unreserved fund balance. But again, that can wait. And I think, Andy mentioned, just because we can't cancel a regular meeting doesn't mean, last year we had 3 special meetings, for the board for the purposes of hiring. So canceling a regular meeting and then business comes up, we can always schedule a special meeting of the board.
Yeah, I think we can cancel it and then just arrange a board meeting as needed.
Need a motion for that, right? Okay.
I'll make a motion to cancel the June 24th meeting.
Any questions or discussion? All approved.
So something that came up before and when we were talking about strategic planning was, and I kind of asked about it, eventually doing it, and I think in the fall, if we could talk about it in a board meeting, is the idea of how we teach citizenship, how we teach gathering information, how we teach skills of discussion between students, the ability to agree, to disagree, kind of that sort of thing. It was not included in a strategic goal, but I think understanding information and the ability to have discussions, I think, is important. And I don't know whether it needs to be in the strategic plan, but that's because I don't know how much we do it in the schools. And I think like a look at that, talking to the teachers and talking to the administration, what those skills look like. There's speaking and listening skills that are in the ELA statutes as well that I think would be important. And then also when it comes to speaking and listening, I highly encourage people to reach out to Bob and have discussions with him about things that they disagree with. And then if after they've discussed it with him, if they still are unsatisfied, they can bring it to the board. But he is the leader of the school district, so those things should go to him first.
Board members, anything else before we move on to the personnel report? Okay, moving on to the personnel report with Bob Thompson.
Yeah, so for the board's consideration, I have one nomination for professional staff at the central school, and that is Amanda Mazza, who I'm nominating to be the Board Certified Behavior Analyst, otherwise known as a BCBA.
And this would be specific to the central school?
That is correct. I will add, too, that Amanda was a former Hampstead School District employee prior to my tenure. She was a case manager at the central school. It's a little bit of a homecoming during the interview process.
I'll make a motion to accept Amanda Mazza for the BCBA position.
Board members, any questions or comments or concerns? All approved.
All right, for the superintendent report, just a couple of real quick items. I know it's getting late. So speaking of positions, you know, we have a number of open positions. The area that is really starting to concern me is special education case management. And this is not a unique issue to Hampstead. In fact, I would say the last few years we've been a little bit immune to it. We've had good candidate pools across the state. The candidate pool for special education is in very, very high demand. So as of right now, you know, we have 2 case management positions at the central school that we are looking to fill, in the process of filling, and then also 1 at the middle school. That concerns me. And, you know, I appreciate all of the efforts that the building administrators and our director of student services have put in trying to fill these, but all the creativity that goes into recruiting and word of mouth, and it's not yielding the same results that it has previously. And again, not a uniquely Hampstead problem, but we're finally feeling it. There's just not enough certified, qualified special educators out there. I also have just to make the board aware, I received a donation to the Hampstead Central School for $138 from HCA Healthcare. So this really is a employer-matched donation. So we have a family or an individual who did an employer match who works at HCA. So there's really 2 donations. There's the HCA, and then there's an anonymous donation because we don't know who the employee was. So I just want to, whoever they are, thank you very much for the donation. And again, no action on the part of the board just because of the dollar amount.
And stress the importance of being able to have corporate match, you know,
Yes.
donations.
Yes,
It's a
so
great
we
way to-
would gladly be the recipients of any corporate donations, and I know that a lot of corporations do offer these to their employees, and we appreciate the donation. I want to thank the Mothers Club. I did a real quick cameo before the meeting to the ice cream social at the Central School. Very well attended. There was an army of volunteers, and again, they offer these amazing experiences to our families and to our students. The money that they raise will later be donated back to some, you know, incredible project that we have going. Like, they are such an amazing partner with the school, so I just wanted to thank them. And then I also want, and I know Principal Bernard talked a little bit about this, the group of individuals, one of which is sitting right next to me, that have put the time, effort, and energy into planning this 8th grade semi-formal. This has been really, over the last 4 years, kind of a controversial issue. There's been groups of parents that wanted to bring it back to the school and make it a school event. There's others that wanted to keep it off-site and keep it a parent event. And, you know, Amy, one of her first acts as principal was bringing people to the table, working out the logistics, and this is now a school event. And to hear about all of the amazing fundraising, they've raised, I think, around $3,500, Denise, is that correct? And, you know, the opportunities that students will have at this really sounds like it's going to be an amazing event. So I want to thank all of those involved, including Principal Bernard and Denise for all the work as well. And I think that's really it. I'll entertain any. We have 7.5 days of school left. It's crazy to think. This year's gone by very quick. So our last day of school is next Friday, the 20th. And I just want to say there's so many great events that are going on. You know, we talked about the 8th grade. And I really appreciate the individuals who are organizing some of these events, because while they are organizing all of these extra events, They also have their own children who have end-of-the-year events and other things. So it's a very busy time of the year, and it's important to acknowledge all of the people that are putting the time, effort, and energy into their professional work, but also have obligations on the family side as well. So thank you. That's it for the superintendent report. I'll take any questions that the board might have.
Okay. Board members, any other questions or comments? Anything you want to talk about? Okay. We are going to move into a non-public under 91A3L, consideration of legal advice provided by legal counsel either in writing or orally to one or more members of the public body, even where legal counsel is not present. We do, but I'll make a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91A3L.
Who had the second on that? Dr. Hubner? Okay. May I take roll call?
Yes, please.
All right, Ms. Denton, Dr. Hubner. Mr. Cabarrus?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer? Thank you.